God does not exist because.
God does not exist because.
I think testimonials will help me
Do
out
you
very
understand? Does
much.
that make sense to you? Does
Yeah,
that
it
make
makes
sense
sense.
to you?
It makes sense to me, I guess.
Okay, so God does not exist because. So the last two lines of reasoning you gave were fallacies. So let's hear it. Let's hear it. The third line of reasoning you can give
Well,
that would entail the falsity of God.
I've already answered the question.
And I explained to you both times
And
where
I'm
they were
not able to.
fallacious.
No matter what I say, Jay, I will not be able to convince you.
Okay, should I
You know,
accept fallacious answers?
fallacious. There's nothing fallacious about my answers.
Should
Why would
I
they be
should I
fallacious?
accept fallacious?
What
Should
you're
I accept
saying is
fallacious? Okay,
fallacious.
we're gonna move on.
What you
We're
are
gonna move
saying
on.
is fallacious.
We're gonna move on. Okay. Mark, God does not exist because. Oh, it looks like Mark left. All right. Well,
Hey, Jay, can someone refer to something without being aware that they're referring to them or the thing?
what do you mean by that? Haven't you asked this question before?
Well,
Three
I
times.
still don't. I have, but I don't think I've gotten a clear answer.
Okay. What do you mean by can somebody refer to something without referring or without knowing that they're referring to it?
Well, I think yes, right? Because if someone says that like meat gives you meat gives you like what's it called, heart disease or something like that, it's not actually the composition of the molecules that meat are that gives you heart disease, but it's the cholesterol or whatever. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that that's the case. Um, so it's not really the fact that it's the meat, but it's some part within the meat that gives you heart disease. um, so when you say that meat gives you cancer, it's like semi-true. It's true in virtue of cholesterol being within the meat. So actually you're referring to the cholesterol giving you cancer. Sorry, cancer, I meant heart disease. So therefore I think you can refer to something without being aware that you're referring to it. Would you not agree?
You're just saying that there are like implicit premises that you're affirming or whatever
Yeah.
without knowingly. Okay, but yeah. So what does that? I mean, sure. If that's what you mean by referring to something that you're implying something without knowing it, then fine.
Okay.
Like, what's controversial about that?
Well, I don't think there's necessarily anything controversial. I just think that that's like an argument for why you can be agnostic on the proposition that God exists.
No, it has nothing to do with the proposition or agnosticism towards that proposition. And aside from that, God is not in the category of anything that it will be contingent or creaturely. Okay, God is in the category of that which is metaphysically primary. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
with respect to those kind of things, you cannot be neutral. Okay, because everyone has a metaphysical outlook. Okay, and because metaphysical outlooks are propositional,
Well,
you're
an
gonna
agnostic would,
either affirm the proposition that God exists, or not God exists.
or you're going to be undecided, right?
No,
Hang on,
no, because then you're not
hang on.
operating in the
Let's
world
analyze the
meaningfully.
analogy. Let's analyze the analogy just for 1 second, though. That's like saying that um, from the atheist crossover here, that would be like saying that if you're a global atheist, then you're arguing that meat does not exist, and if you're a local, then you're arguing that cholesterol does not exist. But it, I mean, I get what you're saying, but you can. I mean, like every possible God doesn't exist, or the ultimate in this context, the ultimate mind, the ultimate God would be meat, not just a part of it.
Well, I'm not saying that meat nor cholesterol does not exist. I'm just simply referring to something else when I'm actually like it is true that meat gives you cancer, but only in virtue of it being that there is this component within meat that give I said cancer again. Sorry, I meant heart disease. That gives you heart disease, right? So it's not that the in the analogy that the atheists believe that, or the amethists believe that meat nor cholesterol does not exist. It's that they don't really know that they're referring to cholesterol. In the same way
What
that
does this
an
have to, what does this
agnostic,
have, what does this have to do with the fact that if you're going to speak meaningfully about the world, you're going to be doing so with respect to a metaphysical framework? What does it have to do
yeah,
with that?
Well, an agnostic have been taught facts, right? So they've been taught these facts, but they don't know why they're true. So they're true in virtue of God, but they don't realize that they're true in virtue of God.
That's not relevant to what their position can or cannot be.
Well, that's not relevant to their. Well, if their position is that they suspend judgment because there could be some other explanation, then it's relevant, right?
No, listen. I'm going to present to you again the argument for why you can't be neutral, okay? At least
Mm-hmm.
not rationally speaking, okay?
I see.
Because if you're speaking rationally, if you're speaking meaningfully about the world, if you're speaking intelligibly about the world, you're going to be doing so in virtue of a metaphysic that you're affirming, okay? Right? Metaphysics are propositional in nature, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if you accept the first, if you want to call it a premise, then it's done, okay? Because God is in the category of a metaphysic, okay?
Yeah,
So
but
this is an analogy I'll give, okay?
wait,
Let's
I
say
but I
let's
agree with you.
assume, okay, good. If that's the case, right? Then
Mm-hmm.
there's one of two positions that any one person who affirms a metaphysic is going to affirm, and it's one and only one, not more than one, not less than one and only one, okay? And it's going to be one of these two: either the affirmation of God's existence, affirming God, or the denial of God's existence, affirming not God, or God does not exist, okay, or God exists,
Well,
right? Those are
but
the only
wait,
two positions here you can hold to. That's it.
well, um, just in virtue of being a true dichotomy doesn't mean that you can't like take a suspended judgment position.
Oh, because you just accepted that everyone who's speaking meaningfully has a worldview, okay, or
Yeah,
a
but
metaphysical framework. So, like
they
for example, I'll give you an analogy, okay?
yep.
Because if it was about anything other than this, you'd see it clearly, right? It's only because you don't want to accept that you can't be neutral towards God that you're acting this way. All right. Let's assume that everyone that's on my neighborhood, okay, has a position as to what the color of the grass is. Okay. Do
Hmm.
we understand that so far? Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
If everyone on this street has a position as to what color the grass is, that means they're going to be affirming a proposition with respect to the color of the grass, correct?
Hmm.
Okay, that proposition is going to either be of the form, or it's going to be of the nature that the grass is green. You're going to either affirm that proposition, or you're going to be affirming a different proposition. And there's only one other proposition here with respect to the law of excluded middle. The grass is not green. Okay,
Yeah.
and whatever color the grass is that's not green is going to be an affirmation of the proposition the grass is not green. It's going to entail that necessarily.
Sure.
Okay, so then it is the case, right? In this case, we're talking about a specific set of people, right? So
Hmm.
in the case of the analogy, we're talking about the set of people that exist on XYZ neighborhood, right? On the street, okay? In
Hmm.
this case, we're talking about people who speak meaningfully and intelligibly about the world, people who are rational, okay? Now, you
Hmm.
obviously believe that you're rational. You obviously believe that you're speaking meaningfully about the world. Everyone who has a functioning brain, has functioning cognition, is going to be affirming, even if it's at a primitive sense, some sort of a metaphysical framework. They're going to be
Well,
affirming. They're
just to
going to have some
clarify, I
model of reality that they're operating under.
just to clarify, I'm not necessarily agreeing that I would be perfectly rational in all sense in all cases, but I do think that I sometimes are rational, and I do think that I'm sometimes speaking meaningfully about the world, but not as like a category.
No, I'm just pointing out. I'm just putting forward the necessity of having a rational, or having a metaphysic as a necessary condition for being
Hmm.
rational. Okay,
And I'm even, but
so
Jay, I'm even
that's
open
all
to
that's relevant here.
that metaphysic being the Christian God, but they are just unaware
Okay,
that they're actually
listen,
invoking the Christian God. Yeah.
listen. I'm gonna point out to you how this is the analogy. Okay, so we're talking about a specific set of people here. Okay, in the analogy, it was the people that existed on the street. Okay, in the case we're talking about with God, right? The affirmation of a metaphysic is going to be everyone who's operating in the world meaningfully. Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
now that's going to entail that if they're operating, or that if they're operating under a metaphysic, that they're affirming propositions, right? Because a metaphysic is going to be one or more propositions about the nature of reality. Okay.
Sorry,
Now,
say that
in the
again.
same way, a metaphysic, because a metaphysic is going to be your metaphysical framework is going to be a set of propositions,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
or more propositions. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, in the same way that green is in the category of colors, God is in the category of a metaphysic or a worldview. Okay, is going to be the creator-creation distinction.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, all you got to do is plug in the values. Okay, because as a proposition, you're either going to be affirming God's existence because you've already accepted that you're affirming a metaphysic, or you're going to be denying God's existence because we're appealing to propositions which are going to be uh, under the laws of logic, the three
But
laws of logic: law of
wait,
identity,
I agree that
non-contradiction, and excluded middle.
the proposition is either true or false. But whether or not I affirm it doesn't mean that the proposition is.
You just said that we're affirming it. We just went over this 5 seconds ago. Everyone is
Yeah, and I.
affirming a metaphysic. Okay, we just did this. So if they're affirming a proposition, there's
Yeah.
only one of two propositions that can be affirmed by virtue of the law of excluded middle: A or not A. Okay. So if you're
Mhm.
affirming a metaphysic, then you're going to be implicitly or explicitly affirming or denying God's existence. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. It's clear and cut and dry. I mean, this is not complicated
Yeah.
at all.
No, I agree.
Okay.
But
So
the
if
agnostic.
somebody's affirming
Yeah.
a metaphysic, are they going to be either affirming or denying God's existence necessarily?
They're either going to. Yeah, they're going to do either or. Yeah.
Okay. People who are operating in the world meaningfully and intelligibly are affirming metaphysics. That means that everyone, okay, because they are operating in the world meaningfully, okay, everyone at least who has a functioning brain. We're not talking about dead people or
But
people who are severely mentally challenged or damaged. Okay,
this
they're
is where
going to
you
be
lose me.
affirming a metaphysic.
Yeah, this is where you lose
Okay.
me because agnostics are just simply saying that I know or I believe one plus one plus I believe 1 plus 1 equals 2, but that doesn't mean that they're affirming a that doesn't mean that they're affirming a metaphysic that is not
Then they're not. If they're
God.
not affirming if they're not affirming a metaphysic, then they're not invoking facts.
No, yeah,
Okay.
sure, but they are yeah,
Good.
they are
Then they can't. Then they're not. Then their invocation of facts and speaking about reality is irrelevant and
yeah, but
meaningless.
wait,
So you haven't
I
refuted my position.
no, I didn't finish. So it's not that they're not affirming a metaphysic. They're just saying that they're affirming a metaphysic, but they're unsure what type of metaphysic they're affirming. That's all the agnostic is saying. So they say that they could be
No, then they're
affirming.
not affirming it. Then they're not actually affirming a metaphysic. They're saying I believe something is true. I don't know what is true. I don't know what I am affirming. Then they're not affirming anything, because by affirming something, you're saying that you have access to what you're affirming, right? If I say I'm affirming a proposition, but I don't know what the proposition I'm affirming is, then I'm not affirming anything, right? You're
Wait,
just
you can
contradicting yourself.
wait, no, you can affirm something without being sure what you're affirming, right?
Oh,
Why is that the case?
if I say I'm affirming a proposition, right? That
Mhm.
means I know what I'm affirming, right? Otherwise, it's not meaningful for me to say that I'm affirming a proposition.
Well, you can affirm something without being aware that you're affirming it. I don't see any contradiction there.
No, 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 no. What you're talking about is that something is being entailed necessarily by what you're affirming, and you're
Hmm.
not aware of that
Yeah.
entailment. That's not to say that you actively have the belief in what you're entailing. Okay, those are two different things. You're confusing ontology and epistemology.
Okay.
That's the equivocation you've been doing this whole time. Okay, what we're talking about right now is what the person is affirming. Okay. They're affirming a proposition X, Y, Z. Okay? To say that they're
Hmm.
affirming it, right, that means they're implying that they have a conscious apprehension of what they're affirming. Right? They're not saying I'm affirming I don't know, right? Because then that's not a meaningful statement, right? So what we're talking about are people who have a metaphysical framework, which is necessary for intelligible predication. It's necessary for meaningful and rational operation in the world. Okay? In order for you to do that, and once you're doing that, I'll say, okay, then you're going to be immediately put into one of two categories, one of two camps. The atheist camp, where you're going to be affirming the not God worldview, that God does not in fact exist, or you're going to be put into the theist camp, okay, where you're affirming that God does exist. Those are the only two categories, okay? It's the law of
Hmm.
excluded middle, A or not A. There's no third option here. All I'm doing is plugging in values. This is not complicated or controversial.
Well, I agree that there's only two positions, but I still don't really understand
Right.
why.
So what's your rebuttal then? What's your rebuttal to what I'm telling you? Because it's not clear to me. The only thing you've given is equivocation.
Yeah, I'm hearing you say it's equivocation, but I'm still struggling to see what the equivocation is. So I think all the agnostic is really saying is that they're affirming a fact, right? And the fact entails a metaphysic, right? All they're
In order for them
affirming
to
is that.
bring up that things entail X, Y, and Z would mean that they have. In order for them to meaningfully say that things are entailed by X, Y, and Z, and in order for them to meaningfully say that X, Y, Z is true, means that they're affirming a metaphysic. Okay, that's what that means.
Sure,
That they are actively
but
affirming a metaphysic. If that's meaningful
but
predication.
all but all the agnostic is saying is that they're presented with a proposition and they affirm the proposition to be true, and entailed by that there is a metaphysic, right?
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything. The agnostic who's saying that agnosticism, right, is the claim not to be affirming a metaphysic. Okay, you can put agnosticism in that way. Okay, that they're not affirming a
Wait,
metaphysical reality, right?
I I don't understand agnosticism that way. How did you get there?
Because metaphysical reality is gonna include God in that concept. Okay, so if they don't know whether or not God exists, they're not affirming a metaphysical reality because there's only two positions here with respect to metaphysical reality: the God or the not God worldview. So to say that you're not, so to say that you don't have a position would mean that you're not affirming a metaphysic.
Well, the agnostic is saying that there could be something else that is outside of my comprehension.
So that's irrelevant to what I just said. That's irrelevant, completely irrelevant. Okay.
Well, no,
There are
the reason I
two
think it's
categories. Are there not two metaphysical categories: the God or the not God worldview? Are there not two metaphysical categories here?
sure.
Then to be agnostic about that is to make no claim with respect to your metaphysic. Okay, because then to make a claim would be to affirm one way or another as to what the metaphysical reality is. Okay, so to be agnostic is to be of the position that you're not having a position about your metaphysical framework.
Sure, I agree with that characterization.
Okay, well then,
But
if you're not affirming a metaphysic, then you're not speaking meaningfully about the world. We just went over this like 5 minutes
but
ago. I don't know. I don't
but
know why I'm doing this. Right?
well, yeah.
This should
Sorry, I
be
don't want to.
easy to understand.
Yeah, maybe I'm just dumb, but yeah, I'll mute up if you don't want to continue.
This isn't hard to understand once it's been laid out 5 times. You know, after half a dozen times of laying this out to you, I don't see what's complicated about this, right? I
Well,
mean,
it's still just that.
I've explained this to
Yeah,
you.
it's still the same thing that I've said. Maybe I'm just really slow, but all the agnostic is saying is that they affirm the proposition, and the proposition entails a worldview or a metaphysic, and so they are affirming a metaphysic, right? It's not that they're saying that there is no metaphysical reality or something like that. And to not say that, it's not that they're saying that it's not a metaphysical reality, nor are they saying that there is one. Um, but
Okay,
they
this
could
is the
like
same conflate.
yeah.
This is the same conflation of epistemology and ontology again. Okay, because I'm not saying that in reality, the words that they're uttering don't mean anything. I'm saying that with respect to what they're saying, they don't refer to anything. The propositions that they're uttering, okay, the propositions themselves do not refer to anything, okay, because a proposition, in order for it to be in order for it to be a proposition, it must have a subject and a predicate, right? And those things refer to things, right? There's a reference point, okay, there's a context. The
Mm-hmm.
agnostic is not referring to anything because they're not affirming a metaphysical framework, right? An
Yeah.
analogy I like to give, okay, if I tell you that the apple is on the counter, right? I'm affirming and uttering a proposition, right?
Yep.
Okay, which means is the same as me saying it is true that the apple is on the counter, right? If you stopped
Yep.
me and you asked me, what do those things mean, right? What does apple mean? What does truth mean? What does counter mean? Okay, and I tell you I don't know. Okay, the
Mm-hmm.
words have actual meanings, right? The words actually mean something, right? And so the proposition I'm uttering could be true, irrespective of what I mean when I say them, or irrespective of whether or not I know what I mean when I say them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that the word truth actually means something. Let's say that the word apple has a defined definition and counter has a defined definition, right? They actually mean something, but with respect to what I'm saying, I'm not actually referring to anything. Okay, because when you ask me what do they mean, I'm telling you I don't know. So I might as well be muttering incoherent gibberish that doesn't resemble anything with respect to language. Okay, because I'm not
Um,
referring to anything.
I don't think I can accept that. Right? They're referring to this thing that they think is there, that is laying on this other thing that is the grounds on what they're.
No, they're not, because they say I don't know what, because I'm telling you I don't know what I'm referring to. I don't know what apple means, so I'm not referring to anything. Now the words mean something, which is why you can. I mean, when you're perceiving them, it means something. But like, if both of us, for example, let's say neither of us, I'm assuming, are huge, philosophy. We don't have PhDs in philosophy. If I started, verbalizing to you philosophical jargon that was way, this, high-minded philosophical jargon that means nothing to either of us. Neither of us know what is actually being said here, right? I'm not referring to anything, right? The
Mhm.
words may have a set meaning in the philosophical context, but me myself am not referring to anything. I'm not referring to anything by definition because I don't know what I'm referring to.
Well, you can refer to something regardless whether or not you know you are referring to something. This is the thing that I asked earlier.
No, but I'm saying I'm not referring to anything with respect to what I'm affirming, right? If you ask me what I'm referring to, I'm going to say I don't know, right? Which means I'm not referring to anything.
Well, I don't think that I can accept that, right? You can affirm something. Sorry, you can. Yeah, you can refer to something without being aware that you are affirming to it. This goes back to my original question,
All right,
which we
listen.
agreed
I'm
on.
not saying that the ontological state of affairs that I'm referring to is not actual. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
Yeah,
that
sure, sure.
I myself, when I'm using these words, I am not referring to anything. Okay? I'm talking about my own mental state of affairs. Okay? My epistemology. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not speaking meaningfully about anything. Okay? Because I don't know what the words I'm using are referencing. Okay? If you ask me, what does apple counter truth mean? And I tell you, I don't know, then I am not referring to anything. Okay? Because the predication is only meaningful if the words refer to things, right? And if I don't know what they refer to, while yes, the words have meaning, I am not speaking meaningfully because I'm not referring to anything when I'm
Well,
speaking.
I think it's just blatantly obvious that you are referring to something, but you don't know what you are referring to. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Yes, in reality, I'm referring to something because apple has a
Yes.
meaning. But
Mhm.
okay, in my mind, I'm not referring to anything. Right? That's the epistemology. You're conflating epistemology and ontology again. In my mind, I'm not referring to anything. Correct or not correct?
Well, I think you are. I don't understand why
No,
you
I'm
say.
not. Apple doesn't refer to anything. I just told you. In my mind, am I
Um,
referring to anything? In my mind? Because again, epistemology and ontology are two different things. So in
yeah,
my
but
mind, am I referring to anything?
uh,
The answer is obviously no. I don't know why this is so complicated. If I tell you I don't know what I'm referring to, I don't know what apple means. In my mind, I'm not referring to anything. This is not complicated.
well, you don't. If you don't know what apple refers to, you can still be referring to something when you utter a proposition. That is
Okay,
the
that's
point.
equivocation of epistemology and ontology.
No, no,
Answer
wait,
the
wait.
question as I presented it to you. In my mind, am I referring to anything? Yes or no?
I think so. Yes.
Okay, no, that's not true because I told you I don't know what I'm speaking about. So it's not true by definition. It's just
Well,
analytically the case. Analytically true.
regardless of whether or not you know, you can still refer to something. This goes back to my original question.
Okay.
So,
I want you to
yep,
answer the question that I presented to you, okay?
yep.
The answer to the question is no. All right? So I don't know how you're not seeing this. In my mind, I'm not referring to anything, okay? Because I'm telling you myself I don't know what I'm referring to. So in my mind, I'm not referring to anything. Unless you're saying I'm lying to you.
Well, to say
That
that you
would be the
don't
issue then.
know, well, to say that you don't know does not mean that there is nothing. This is the issue.
Okay. If I tell you I don't know what I'm referring to, in my mind, am I referring to anything? Yes or no? This is where the conversation ends right here. If you don't answer properly, okay? I've
I think
just given you the answer. If I tell
well,
you I don't know what I'm referring to, then in my mind, do I know what I'm referring to? Yes or no?
I think you can be,
Right, the
but
conversation's over then, because I
yeah,
mean,
that's
I just gave you the answer to the question. And you're not focusing.
well, it's just
So
a disagreement. But that's fine, Jay. That's fine.
no, we're done. I just told you the answer to the question. The answer is no, right? If I don't know, then I don't know. So it's just a tautology, right? But I don't. Apparently, you don't understand that. So, uh, T, are you an atheist? T, your mic is muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, I am.
Okay. God does not exist because.
I'm not accepting the definition that you're proposing.
Okay, God is defined as an ultimate mind. Okay, are you saying that such a being does not exist?
I'm saying that that definition lacks utility.
Okay, whether or not it has utility doesn't bear relevance to whether or not the being I'm talking about exists. So, as an atheist, atheists deny the existence of God. So God does not exist because.
So, like I'm saying, that definition, by that definition, God exists. It's a logical necessity, right? By definition. But I'm not accepting of the definition. So there's no point in challenging the proposition because the proposition is
Okay,
definitionally
T,
true.
do you believe that God? Do you believe that God exists as He's been defined?
No,
God does not exist because.
I don't accept the definition. The definition lacks utility.
Okay, what do you mean that you don't accept the definition?
Okay, so if I accept the definition, the logical proposition is that God exists. It's an entailment. You must accept that
No, it's
proposition,
not. No, it's
right?
not. No, it's not. No, it is not. Because
It's not
defining
an
something as
entailment.
metaphysically necessary doesn't mean that it. No, because defining something as metaphysically necessary doesn't mean that it actually exists. Like Allah is defined as metaphysically necessary. That doesn't mean Allah exists. Okay. So God does not exist because.
Okay, well that would be all I have, right? I mean,
All right. So you don't have a defense for your position.
no, like I said, I would have to have a different definition then, right, of God
No,
because
no. Please listen, T, please. Okay. God is defined in the general conception as that which is fundamental and a mind. Okay? There's nothing controversial, there's nothing complicated, there's nothing convoluted about that definition at all, to the slightest extent at all. Okay? So to define God in this manner, okay, and then to work off of it for the purposes of defending your position should not be a hard task. Okay? So I want to know from you, God does not exist because.
I wouldn't assume that that definition has utility. It's like I keep saying, right?
The fact that it's something that doesn't have utility to you doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
No,
Okay?
definitionally, I'm saying, right? And that's the point
I
that I'm
don't even know
making.
what that means. I don't even know what that means.
So if I say that something is definitionally existent, right? It exists by definition. What I'm effectively saying is that, I'm stating it as an axiom, and I'm want it, and there's no way out of that, right? We can simply just accept the axiom for the sake of conversation and move forward, right?
T, you don't know what you're talking about, okay? To say that something exists by definition doesn't mean that it's real, okay? For example,
Oh, I agree.
pretty much everything exists by definition. Okay?
I agree.
Superman exists by definition,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
agree.
So appealing to the fact that something may exist by definition is irrelevant to whether or not it actually exists, okay?
Okay.
So your position is that God does not exist. Saying that God is defined as existing doesn't bear relevance to anything. Okay, so
Okay.
God does not exist because
I think you're asking me about my mental state, right?
God does not exist because.
The only thing I can tell you about is my mental state, which is my belief.
All right, we're gonna do this one more time. You believe God does not exist, right?
I'm telling you, man, that's all I got.
So whatever comes after this, right? When I ask you this question, I'm saying God does not exist because, right? Because X. You're supposed to fill in the value for X, right? Such that when the sentence is completed, it would form the argument X, therefore God does not exist, right? Okay. So I want you to fill in X, so that would be necessarily entailing that God does not exist. Okay. So God does not exist because X. Because what?
And what I'm telling you is I don't think that can be done. Right?
Okay, so you can't defend your atheism then.
I don't think there is a valid argument for that. That God doesn't.
Okay, so you can't defend your atheism, is what you're telling me.
Oh no, that's not what I'm saying. Right?
Okay, so God does not exist because.
What I'm saying is that you can't start with the premise and then end with the conclusion, because the very entailment is that there is such a thing as God, right? And if there's such a thing as God, then we're already in the weeds on this, right? So I can't argue against this logically. There is no logical entailment that I can put forth, right? It's just not going to happen. Nobody is going to be able to do it.
Then atheism is indefensible. Thank you for proving the point that's been made here the past few years. So, are you familiar with the Christian worldview at all?
I am familiar with the Christian worldview. In fact, I was.
You're familiar with the gospel message. Are you familiar with the gospel message?
To the extent that I've sat in church many times and listened to them talk about it. I'm not sure that I could recite it by recite what it is you are asking me to say.
Yeah, well, ultimately, right? We want you to turn from your atheism, right? So the point is that we're showing you the incoherency and the irrationality of it, right? If you're as rational as you say you are, you'd leave atheism as soon as it's. By the way, God has revealed Himself to everyone, right? But upon this presentation of the complete and utter irrationality and bankruptcy of atheism, if you're as rational as you say you are, you'd leave it in a heartbeat, okay? The Christian gospel message is simple, okay? I'll tell you, since just to make sure that we're clear, and also for everyone else that's listening, is that we live in a fallen world, okay? That sin and death is prevalent, and that because God is righteous, because God is just, sin deserves a punishment. But God is also merciful, okay? He extends grace, which is unmerited favor, towards sinners that don't deserve it, okay? That would be you, me, and everyone else here, okay? And that mercy is shown through the second person of the Trinity, which is Jesus Christ, right? Who came in bodily form, came in human form, died, right? Was buried and was resurrected, lived a perfect life. After that was buried and was resurrected. And that through faith in Him alone, you will be saved, okay? So that's what I'm urging everyone in the room to do. To put their faith, put their trust in Jesus Christ as their only means for salvation. Aside from which there is nothing that you could hold to.
I would love to be convinced of that. Honestly, I would. And I can only say that from the most genuine place of my heart.
Okay, well, there's nothing more to say to you, right? Because you've been presented with the irrationality of your atheism. There's no reason why you shouldn't reject your atheism. Now, transcendentally, I can reason to you why Christianity must be the case. Okay, with respect to God's essential properties. Okay, God is ultimate. He's a mind, omniscient, omnipotent, revelatory, personal, always truth revealing. These are necessary qualities of God, and that are exclusive to the Christian God. Okay. Starting with like a fundamental or ultimate thing that exists, that is necessary. Okay, the reason why that's necessary is because it's going to provide an ontological basis and ontological coherence to things that happen within the world. Okay, meaning that there are certain limits as to what can and cannot happen. Everything is not possible, right? There is a coherence to the world, and that is set in virtue. That is the case in virtue of that which is ultimate, that which is metaphysically primary. Okay. Do you accept that, or do you understand that? If you need me to unpack it more, I can.
I would definitely like it more unpacked. Because I'm interested, right? I want to hear what it is that you're saying, right? Unfortunately, I just ran out of time, and I do apologize. But I will return. Can we do this another day?
Yeah, definitely. You can back channel me for sure, and also you can let me know, and then we can pick this up later.
I appreciate it, because I'd like to listen to what it is you have to say.
Definitely. I'll talk to you later. All right. Let's see. Navin's also in the audience, or Navin's on the stage. So, Navin, God does not exist because.